the idea, the main goal is not to create a perfect picture. That's not what this is about. It's about learning how to sketch like some of our animators do up in the studio. So it's going to look rough, it's going to look messy, but my one piece of advice, because we don't have erasers, is sketch lightly. So we start off with a basic shape like a circle, and then layer upon layer we'll build upon that and you'll start seeing Groot, at least hopefully. If not, Hakuna Matata, right? Okay. So let's get started drawing out Baby Groot, starting off with a circle in the center of your page. I would say make this the size of a baseball or so. If you make this too small, then it becomes a little bit more difficult to start drawing in everything else on the inside here. But we're definitely going to be going outside of this shape because he has more of this like rooftop like crown above his head and very rounded chin. This is just a great starting off point for us. Now to help keep everything balanced, I'm going to just split this circle in half, so right down the center here. Right there. And the idea to make characters like Baby Groot or like smaller characters that have big foreheads and smaller features. So what we'll do is we'll place the eyeline not in the center, but a little bit below the center. So if I'm looking right here, I'm going to go about halfway down and sketch out a line from left to right. But still, in looking at this shape, not seeing Baby Groot so much. So what we need to do is on the side of our circle, just above that eye line, we're going to add in these two diagonal lines that go up in either direction. Kind of like we're sketching out a little cup. So very lightly from that eye line, it just goes barely over. And I'll sketch out another one over here. And we'll connect this together. The great thing I love about drawing Baby Groot is he's asymmetrical, so it's not going to be perfectly even when we draw him out. So that's the same can be said for this basic shape. I'm not going to go directly to that center guideline. I'm actually going to bring the top of his head more off-center. So it looks like this roof here on top of his head. Now below our circle, we'll add in his chin or his cheeks as well. And these just pretty much follow that curve of the circle. You're just extending that right off of the side. So you see I'm pulling this line right underneath, here, and here. Gives us more of the shape that we want to work with for Baby Groot. From here we can start adding in those main features that really start to make him stand out. Let's start off with those eyes, because he only says, "I am Groot," with all this subtext, right? But we know what he's saying depending on how those eyes are shaped. So what we'll do is on this line, on either side, start off with a half circle. So I'm just starting right above the line on the left, kind of creating this arch. And then below, this is going to be just a little bit smaller. Looks like we've got this gumdrop here. So big half circle, and just as a little bit smaller of a curve. Guess what we're going to do on the other side? The same thing. So I'm going to bring in a great big curve up and around here. And this is something that's here to stay. This is something we want to see at the end of our sketch. So now that you've placed it, we can go back in with some heavier line work, which is just fancy talk for making your lines darker, so it can stand out. The thing is about sketching is our eyes are engineered to look at contrast. So you're sketching on a bright sheet of paper, and you're making these dark marks. So you have to be very mindful of where you want your darkest marks to be, because your viewers in general are going to be looking at that first from the get-go. So on the inside here, we'll draw out these very large pupils. He can look in any direction, but because he's so small, I in general like to make him look up. So if I'm thinking about it, I want to think about like a crescent moon as I'm sketching this out on the inside. So you can see I'm going round and round, taking that top portion of that curve and then looping it back here. And if you're thinking, how can I make this look more like Baby Groot? How can I make this adorable or more adorable? Well, I got you. What really helps is by adding in a highlight. You'll notice, think like a character like Bambi. Bambi's got like that sparkle in his eyes. Even a lot of other Disney characters have this as well. In general, the bigger you make the highlight, the more like adorable and so cute the character can look. I just make a small circle for Baby Groot here, just toward the top. Now, if you change the placement of this to the other eye, he can easily look cross-eyed or just like weird googly eyed. So in general, I keep it in the same place. And this space right here is where we want this to be the darkest part of our sketch. We want all that energy and everyone to focus right into these eyes. I'm even using the end of my pencil there to fill in that space. But right below that crescent moon shape that's built is actually a nice amber color for him. So if you want to add in just a little bit of shading in that little sliver, I would say take the side of your pencil here and just get this very nice mid-tone. It doesn't need to be as dark and as heavy as those other eyes. Now, the challenge in drawing Baby Groot is finding out when to stop for the detail work, because there's so many details that we can draw on this character. As far as bringing out more of what Groot is on film, it's a good idea to draw out the little eyelids. These just follow the shape of the eyes fairly close, and we don't want to darken this too dark, so I'm just curving this below and above, just to draw in just a little bit more of that detail. Right below, mimicking that same curve. And like I said before, you want those pupils to be the darkest part, so when you're making those curves above and below the shape, you don't need to make them super heavy. Now we got the eyes in place. The next step is drawing out the smile. Now, once again, going back to thinking about character designing, drawing out a character that's more childlike and younger, you don't want their features to be very wide and big. You want them to be smaller. This can be said for the smile. So for the smile, you don't really want to go, cheek to cheek unless you really want to. But I like to make his smile just in between those eyes, about halfway between. For me, it really lands right on top of this circle. Might be a little different for you though. So I'm just going to add just that swooping curve of a line, and then we'll frame it up. These little smile lines there. If you want to make him look a little bit more excited, you can just pull an extra letter U from side to side, and then I would shade in that space. Now once you've got this in place, that pretty much does it for at least the expression. Oh, actually, what else could we add to help boost up the expression? Eyebrows, for sure. Even though he doesn't have eyebrows technically like you and I, there is definitely some bark that help add to that expression. So that would be placed in between from the top of his head here to the top of his eye shape. Even placing it in different positions can kind of give you different emotions and different kind of expressions. For me, I'm just going to very lightly add in a curve here, and I'm going to add in another curve right above another one. So it starts off with this nice simple line, but then I can add in some detail and make more of that bark along the way. Just kind of look like these lines, like little staples across varying lengths to help build that in. But that should give us all that we need for the expression for Baby Groot. How is everyone doing out there so far?
I am Groot.
I am Groot! That's Groot to hear. Now, are you all having fun? Do you like your sketches so far? Thumbs up if you like what you see. You're like, okay, this is kind of like Baby Groot. Okay, maybe like a mid-tone. What about this? 2 thumbs up if you're having a great time. You're like, oh yeah, this is fun. Okay, good. Now, from here, we really got to start making them look a little bit more organic. And the key here is not worrying to make yours exactly like mine or exactly like your neighbor's. It's by going in and adding in these variants of like nooks and crannies, okay? And I'll show you how the best way to do this. I like to start here with that rooftop, and I'm going to add in these letter V's that break up that top of his head, so it does look more like it's been like ripped from the side of a tree to give us that look, that natural look. So I've got, you can see a letter V here that's a little bit longer, a shorter one here. I'll do a real skinny one on that side. And what I'm going to do is start right by that eye line. I'm going to start building out the outside of his head. And you can see how there's a little bit more of a jagged line to it. I can even go right above here and make these lines just a little bit more random. The key here is you don't want anything to look super perfect. It's supposed to look like it is, like I said, ripped from the tree here. You can follow along, even add in some extra grooves along the way. Now, but when we draw this in, this line is good. We want something that's better or even best. And what we can do is add in a little bit more depth to our sketch here by going up to this space, because right now it looks like it's a paper cutout, so it looks very flat. But we know that he does have more space around his head. So what I like to do is just take these letter V's on this side. I'm going to add in just this little pizza slice here, because pizza's amazing. But it's not pizza. There we go. And just build in more of what's happening in the back. Just a little hint at what's going on here on the inside. So adding in a little bit more of a three-dimensional shape to it adds that nice realistic touch. And then also bringing down some wood grain lines. As far as sketching these out, you don't need to make these very heavy. I kind of just pull down these lines that run up and down. You can start here with the letter V's. Kind of bring down these lines, and then in between, kind of run your pencil up and down, not worrying about a ruler, trying to make these super precise. But if you're looking at your sketch like mine, it looks like he's disappearing here, and that is just sad. So we're going to close that off, and I'm going to just darken in this line, keeping it nice and round. And I'll also just throw in his neck at the bottom. This is just a diagonal line and a little diagonal line closed off. But at this point in our sketch, this is where you're just adding in those details that you want to throw in. We've already drawn in the essentials that we need for our very own Baby Groot. I like to throw in just a little bit of a shading just to the side of my pencil underneath. And then go ahead and sign next to your artwork. So find somewhere and sign next to that. All right, how do we do in the end? Utter silence. Did you have a good time, I hope? Yes, no, maybe so. And if you didn't, there are lots of fun rides out there. There are churros. We even got Starbucks, so we got you covered. But I'd like to see how all of these turned out. So we're going to